If only life were a straight path to our desired destination, wouldn't life be so much easier? Yeah, maybe. But those unexpected zigzags in our path teach us that life's tough struggles have greater purpose than we ever imagined. Stories and strategies are our focus for Season 4. Zigzag and One host, Melanie Brown, chats with courageous women who share their stories of encountering zigzags and how they fought to overcome them. Be assured their stories will inspire and encourage you. But we know warm and fuzzy feelings aren't enough to equip you to fight those challenging zigzags in your path. So, this season, our guests are joining us for another episode to share strategies, mindsets, and habits that strengthened and empowered them during their toughest seasons. Join us in declaring, zigzags may interrupt our path, but they will not detour us. We will keep moving forward.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Zigzag and One podcast. Our last episode, number 63, was with Yvonne Taylor. If you haven't listened to her interview yet, I encourage you to, as you'll hear about her experiences when she and 20 other Black students integrated into the all-white Hoxie High School in 1955. She described her parents' teachings about treating others with kindness, regardless of how they treat you, and how it was integral to how she navigated that difficult school year. In fact, several times she referenced other teachings her parents instilled in her that have carried her throughout her life. Those teachings became her mindset and have been passed on to her children and grandchildren. I invited Yvonne back to discuss how each of us can impact the world by choosing kindness. After listening to today's episode, I challenge you to be intentional in choosing kindness in your interactions with others and see how you can impact the world. Join me for my mindset interview with Yvonne Taylor. I am so excited to have Yvonne Taylor join me for another episode. Welcome back, Miss Yvonne.
Thank you.
I am excited because you talked about several mindsets that your parents instilled in you and how important those were during your year-long experience at Hoxie High School. And so we are going to unpack that, and I want to hear more. I want to start with the mindset that they instilled in you before you went to Hoxie, in that they said, people are going to treat you differently because of the color of your skin, but you need to remember who you are, and those words, their actions cannot determine you or define you. I want to do a little bit of a flip on that, in that I want to talk about what else they taught you about how to treat others, whether those people were kind to you or whether they were nasty to you or maybe even indifferent to you. What did your parents teach you about treating others?
They told us to treat others with love and respect, regardless of how we were treated. Just remember that we all are God's children, and we all should treat each other with love. And sometimes it was hard.
Well, I imagine that year at Hoxie High School, it was very hard.
Absolutely.
Tell me about when they talked to you about treating others, as you just described. Did you see them do this on a regular basis, or was it just something that they said?
No, they lived it.
What do you mean by that?
See, my mother, for instance, one time we went to the store, and this lady, mother spoke to the lady, and the lady didn't speak. When the lady came back out, mother spoke to her again, and the lady spoke to her, but it's almost like she ignored her.
She just gave a very quick response, and then just kind of turned and went on her way?
Yeah, exactly.
And then how did your mom respond?
She didn't respond, just kind of smiled and kept walking.
So she
She
didn't
always did
let
that.
that lack of response impact her and ruin her day, or she didn't get nasty in
No,
return.
listen, she did not, because she said they always told us, if somebody come to us in a negative way, and we react back in a negative way, that's when friction starts. That's when the problem started. And it did. I've seen my mother be ignored and laughed at by other
Wow.
women. And let me tell you, it was not easy when I would hear especially my mother, tell us how we had to treat somebody regardless of how they treated us, because we just couldn't walk away from it like she did.
And so you saw an instance where she was
Yes,
being
ma'am.
ignored like that. How did it make you feel as her daughter?
Feel horrible. And we would tell her about it.
Mm-hmm. I guess where I'm going with this is, did you say, Mom is amazing and I need to incorporate that? Or did you say, Mom, why didn't you react?
Yeah, exactly what we'd say. And my older sister would call Mother a cream puff.
A what?
Because we call her a cream puff.
A cream puff. What does that mean? Like, why was she saying that?
Because mother had a personality. But we would go to church and we would have a function at church, and everybody would kind of brag on mother, what she'd done and what she brought. And if somebody said something negative about her, and then we get back home and we tell her, and mother said, well, if they're talking about me, they're letting somebody else rest or something like that. And if somebody's talking about me, that, she would always brush it off.
And that's hard to do.
Yes, but it wasn't for her. But it was hard for us, but it wasn't hard for us. And then some of those women were women that mother showed kindness to. Like if they were sick, she would take food over or something like that. And it was just, we just didn't understand it. And us, as young children, we'd always say, well, I'm not going to be like that. But we could not let her hear that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because you're thinking you shouldn't be nice to that lady. She's been nasty to you.
Yeah.
Is what you're thinking as a child.
Exactly.
And you're wanting her to retaliate, I guess, or say something back. And she's living out what she had said, in parentheses or in quotation marks, preached to you and your siblings about how to treat others.
Exactly.
And it goes against what the world tells us to do, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But my father was the same way. My father was the same way. I have seen my father be ignored also. Mm-hmm. But daddy would come home and he would sort of talk about it. And he said, if I can walk away as an older person, you kids can.
Wow.
And but you know what? We had to do that. We really had to do that. But to be honest, we had more rejection, just as much rejection from the Black community, some of them, as we did some of the white.
Wow.
Yeah, we did.
Tell me how that idea of how to treat others has been something that you have incorporated into your mindset, and how it has impacted your personal life beyond being a child in their home.
It have impacted me in the most positive way, because now I treat people like that. I do. I honestly treat people like that. And it's now, Melanie, it's not so much about, honestly, I don't get a lot of that, because when I meet a person, I meet them with a different attitude. As they say, if my mother said, if you go into something, it's all if you meet people with a negative attitude, you're going to get a negative response.
Or a scowl on your face.
Exactly. I don't do, Melanie, let me tell you, I'm 81 years old. I always meet someone with a smile. And most times I get a smile, because let me tell you something. One thing my mother told me that I learned, that I later learned in nursing. if you treat a person in a manner that even if they ugly to you, it changes. I had a patient when I was a medical technician, and I went into his room, and he was white, and I was the only Black certified medical technician. And when I went in there, I could see the resistance that in his face. And I went on and I said, Mr. Z, using a different name, I came in here to take your operation. They send you up in here? And I said, yes, they did. Girl, he told me that he had one pointed his finger like me, meaning Black, and went on to talk about how they helped him and everything. And I said, what do you mean by me, like me? And he kind of turned off. Well, he didn't want me to take his vital signs or anything. But you know what? Before, make a long story short, before it was over, Mr. Z loved me. But he told his wife, and had a medical attachment and come in here just like you. She thought she was bossy. And my DON told me that when I was not on shift, and he come in, he go, where in the H is Yvonne? You know.
Because he saw the way that you treated him.
Because the way I treated him. I went in, I'm to see, I did all the stuff, and I would talk to him. And I had one time I went in and I had on blue sweater. He said, oh, that's my favorite color. I said, I'll never wear it again. And, you know, we laughed about it, and that was it. And I thought about what Mother said, girl. I thought about kindness makes a difference. You know, I mean, you know, everybody's not going to fall in that trap. But you know what? They can always say, well, she always treated me with kindness, and I did. And I do that to this day. And I'm not saying it to brag, but I do not get many resistance. I don't.
Well, because you are leading the example. You are leading the way and saying, absolutely, I'm accepting you. My parent, you're not saying this aloud, but in your mind, you're going, my parents told me to accept everybody because Black, white doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I'm sure that your experiences at Hoxie High School, both positive and negative, because you did have some positive ones.
Let me tell you something. I'm on the board. They're trying to get a memorial for Hoxie 21 memorial, starting it. And one of the girls that were in my class, and I told her, I said, we weren't friends. I said, but we could have been.
Yes.
I said, we could have been friends. I said, but you know what? That was yesterday. Today is today. And we're taking it from here. And, you know, I would go in there, and when we go to a meeting, we just, like, we were friends. You know,
that's wonderful.
And we could have been friends, but Melanie, I have no more remorse.
And we're going to get to that in a moment, because I want to pull out a quote from your book that talks about that. But I wanted to say, the experiences that you had at Hoxie, both bad and good, really made it such that what your parents were telling you, and by their example, that it's a real truth. If we could just be kind, and you've experienced it numerous times throughout your life, it paves the way for better relations, whether it's Black person with a Black person, or a white person with a white person, or Black and white, or Black and Hispanic, whatever the races are. When you lead with kindness, and I'm putting those words in your mouth because that's what I'm taking away, is that you lead with kindness.
That's right.
Then not that they're following you necessarily, but they return that kindness. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
I think that mindset is beautiful. And if we all, including myself, because there have been days where I've gotten a little snippy or something, if we could just lead with that in every interaction that we have.
Yeah.
Imagine what our world would be like.
Exactly. And I teach my kids the same thing. And you know what? Why do we gave it this? Because I just said Sunday, a friend was talking to me about how the things going in the world and how everything's going. I said, you know what? One thing I know for sure, God's in control. And in the end, he's going to be in control. And It's amazing. And I'm gonna tell you something, girl. I am the happiest 81-year-old Southern senior that you could ever talk to, because I know God, I know who got me. I know who got me.
That is a great segue into the second mindset that I wanted us to talk about. And that is the teaching that your parents, again, taught you with their words, but also with their actions, is the importance of a relationship with God. In your book, again, it's titled Mama, Daddy, and Me. You described how you and your parents felt about the experiences that you dealt with that year and throughout your life as a young person, as well as those racial insults and threats that you and your family endured during that year. And you wrote in your book, and this was very transparent and vulnerable, but it's real. It's just real.
Mm-hmm.
My family said we would be judged by our deeds in the end. And they said that they had no ill feelings after all was said and done. But for me, with a question mark, like you're saying, but for me, are you asking me? So the reader's going, yeah, I want to know what you think. And I did. I wanted to know. And you said, I didn't let go of the pain, not until I accepted Christ in my life. And that was many years later.
Yes.
All throughout your childhood, you were exposed to their faith, their relationship with God. Did you go to church all those years of your young life?
I did. Yes, I did.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you see it, but you just didn't feel it?
Didn't resonate. No, it didn't resonate to us. It didn't resonate with us. They would tell us things like, I knew about God, and I knew about, he would say things like one drop of God's blood created the whole day. We didn't understand what that meant. We went by how they was living.
And so you were going to church week in, week out.
Yes.
And you were hearing the message.
Yes.
The words spoken weren't resonating with you, but in your mind, I'm assuming you're seeing it lived out. It didn't make an impact right away. But just like seeds of any kind, it takes time for that to grow and mature.
Yeah.
And so all those years of your parents living out their faith, walking the walk, made an impact on you. And at some point, you did accept Christ. So let's talk about how accepting Christ opened the door for you to let go of the pain that accumulated throughout that year at Hoxie High School.
They planted the seed. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And I thought about what they had taught us and about God and all. And I started praying, honestly. I started praying and I started reading.
When did that start?
It started really after I left that school.
And you had talked in the last episode that you did pray during that year.
Constantly. When I prayed when I was 14 years old, every day.
There was a seed of belief there.
Yes, and you know what? I prayed because I believed that it would get me through. That day. I prayed that, not really knowing like I know now. What really got me to really get off in it is when I started to work as a medical technician. And I saw how loving white people treated me. So it started making me kind of think about what mother and daddy said.
Yes.
They saw something in me. They saw the goodness of the love in me. So then that made me start studying more. But I didn't get off in it until my father died.
And how old were you then?
About 44, 45.
Okay.
Yeah. But I became true Christian after my father died and started really believing for myself.
Right. All of those years between you at 14 years old as a freshman at Hoxie High School through when you just said in your mid 40s.
Yeah.
You were
still praying.
You were still praying. Were you going to church?
Still going to church.
Okay. So God was planting seeds. Other people were planting seeds. it affected your life, I would have to guess.
It did. It
But
really did.
but it really, the light bulb finally came on at about 45.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
how did you go about dealing with the pain from that year at Hoxie with God?
Oh, girl. I talked to God just like I'm talking to you. And crazy as it might sound, I spoke out.
No,
And
I think that's probably extremely
spoke.
healing.
Yeah.
Did you tell him, I hated this, this
Yeah.
made me mad, this hurt my feelings?
Yes, I did. And moved back here. I became a member at Washington Avenue. And girl, I met the most amazing Christian white people that there were 4 different couples that embraced me and Albert, my husband. All of that teaching that mother and daddy told us that would happen.
Right.
You understand?
Yes. So
You understand how you treat people. God put people in your life
yes, ma'am.
for a reason, for
Yes.
a purpose. I don't know if I would be the Christian person I am now, loving everybody, but I never hated anybody.
Right.
Never.
Right.
When I came here and met the amazing people that helped me grow with my spirituality, it made a whole difference in my life.
I can just see how the mindset of kindness that was
It matters.
taught to you and modeled for you, especially during that year at Hoxie, with you integrating as a Black student into an all-white school, and then seeing the importance of a relationship with God. It all kind of meshed together, and that's when it all became real to you.
Yeah.
Did it release the pain from those years at Hoxie? How did you get rid of the pain?
I got rid of the pain through God, through the word, through God. That's the only way I can put it.
He took it away.
Yeah. And that's what I just told you a while ago. If anybody say that they are a Christian and they go to God to help them heal, and
Yes.
they don't heal, they're not a Christian, because I know how I felt. I know the hatred and thing I felt. And when I prayed, I can't tell you when it happened, but it happened. And it was such a relief. It was such a relief to know.
I can't even imagine, but
No, you can't. But
no.
This may be, you got to give me a minute to say this, and I'll say it real fast. The first time that I received racism, really, was when I was about 13 years old, before I started this Hoxie school.
Mhm.
WRAC TV was having a contest for kids, singing contest. Me, my sister, and one of the other Hoxie 21 kids, like I said, I was going to a broadcasting school, so I had my recorder. I recorded the 3 of us singing "We Are Together" or "Right or Wrong," that song.
Mm-hmm.
And we sounded good, and we sent it. They accepted it. And we get on a train, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And we goes to Memphis, Tennessee. And my cousin there picked us up, took us to the studio. When we got there, they told us they would accept Black contestants. So
Wow.
but you know what, girl? That didn't really bother us as much, because we were scared, as much as it did mother and dad.
Of course, because
Mother, son, dad, and dad. And because we had sent them the tape, they couldn't tell that we were Black.
right.
So before my spiritual life, that was Reuben and Mary. Before God, that was Reuben and Mary. Really.
Yes. And so your parents, Reuben and Mary, and God have shaped your mindset throughout
Absolutely.
your
To
life.
this day. Yes, ma'am.
And it's been through words, but it's also been through modeling this.
That's right.
In the face of opposition or nasty behavior or indifference.
Yes.
And you've seen time and time again throughout your life
Yes.
the power of treating others with kindness and the importance of a relationship with God. So
Right.
this mindset is not something that you've read in a book and you're like, oh, I think I'll try this.
No.
It's
No,
something
ma'am.
that has been woven throughout your life.
Right.
I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I doubt it, that you've passed these two powerful mindsets on to your children as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I got fantastic 5 kids. I have 5 of them. They're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect with God. But baby, I tell you, like I said, I'm happy. I'm the happiest Southern senior because I don't have any animosity against anybody. Oh, girl, I have 5 kids. I text my daughter, she just moved back from Houston to Texas, and I told her that I was having this with you today, and I was she said, Mom, just go be your fantastic, authentic self.
Those are beautiful words from your
she
children.
She did. But
and you have been. You're beautiful. You're fantastic. You're spunky and you're sweet and kind.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
thank you.
I'm just telling you, I have so enjoyed spending this time together.
Me too.
Before we end, though, I do want to ask you, do you have like one story of your children having this same mindset? Not all 5, just one of your children and how it has played out in their lives.
Oh, man, my son, Reuben.
Okay.
Reuben Reuben and Richard are 2 kids of mine, my middle son and my oldest son. They are devoted Christian men. And they such wonderful fathers. I just love it because they're great fathers. My middle son, he adores, he don't have children. He and his wife, they have a adopted child. And he's just fantastic. And he loves me. He spoils me to death. All my kids spoil me to death. And I told them, I said, well, I was the best mother I knew how to be. But
well, that speaks highly of you. Do you see the mindsets of treating others with kindness and absolutely. Relationship with God in each of their lives?
Yeah, each of their lives.
The principles of God and the values that he has in his word are just good, solid ways of living. Give me a 1 sentence, maybe 2, that you could share with the listeners about the mindset of treating others with kindness and a relationship with God that you hope that they incorporate into their lives.
To always treat others the same as you like to be treated, and put God in your life, and it'll work.
And it does work.
It does work.
And it's a powerful combination.
It is. It really is. And I would say love.
Yes, and you mentioned that in the last episode. And if the listener has not listened to that episode, make sure that you go back and listen to that, especially the last little bit where Miss Yvonne talks about the importance of loving others. It is incredible. Miss Yvonne, I don't want to quit talking to you and asking you questions because this has been a blast for me. It's hard to talk about racism and the injustice of that and how we can be so ugly in how we treat each other and the experiences that you had. But I've learned so much from hearing your experiences with your year at Hoxie High School, and I will carry that with me. Those lessons that you shared will help shape my mindset going forward about interactions with others. And so I am grateful that we had that hard conversation in the first episode. It's valuable. We need to hear those things. We need to be reminded of those things.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
yes.
you.
And then this episode, we get to talk about mindsets and kindness and loving God. Again, it's been wonderful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you mind taking us out again?
Okay. When life sags and zags, keep moving forward.